Welcome to the Art of Transitions. My name is Gwen Mazza and I will be your host. Our guest today is Dan Pearl. Dan is going to speak with us about the art of stone walling. And we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Art of Transition. Today our guest, as I had said, is Dan Pearl. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you.
Glad to be here.
I'm very excited to have Dan with us today. We're going to do a show called Simply Beautiful. And Simply Beautiful is actually the tagline to his business and corporation. I had an opportunity to meet Dan a number of years ago as he was going through transition here in the Rochester area of moving from one area of employment, taking a respite, taking some time to think about what he would like to do, and then coming up with a very creative way in which he was going to incorporate talents from a former job into a current job. And I think he's moved from having a job to actually having a vocation and a passion now.
I do. Mm-hmm.
Would you take a moment, Dan, and just tell us what it is that your art is, and it really is an art, and the kind of things that you found yourself involved in these days?
My artwork centers on dry stone walls, and that's walls without mortar. I use the Scottish building techniques where gravity and friction hold a wall together, and I build the walls to stand the test of time.
How much time is that test? I find that interesting, typically.
Well, I would guarantee my walls for life.
Yes.
For my life, and I would expect them to last well beyond that.
One of the things that I found fascinating about you is that you came from the world of corporate
Right.
a number of years ago, and you went through that great experience of downsizing.
I did. Mm-hmm.
You and I both. So one of the things that's really neat is you get a chance to spend some time being quieter. Mm-hmm. Can you share with our audience what happened to you during that downsizing time and how you actually entered into the concept of doing something like stone walls?
It turned out to be a great opportunity, and I ended up working with Gwen in Spirit before I wanted to do anything else, I wanted to find out about my personality and my likes and dislikes, because I had a feeling that I wasn't quite fulfilled in my previous professional life. Mm-hmm. And through an ongoing dialogue with Gwen, mm-hmm. I discovered a lot about myself and where my passion and interests lie. And one day a light bulb went off that I was able to realize that I could meld my hobby with profession, mm-hmm. and just took off with the stone walling like a fish to water. Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because, yes, we did get a chance to do some coaching, and that's actually how I got an opportunity to meet you. A lot of times when I was downsizing, I really wasn't quite sure all of what I wanted to do. And like you said, it gave me a chance to look at how I wanted to recreate myself, and that's really what I saw happen to you. And it was really incredibly amazing to watch you transition, which is the ending to going back into corporate life as you had known it, mm-hmm. into thinking about what you would like to do differently. And tell me about the first time you ever really looked at a stone wall and said, Well,
I'd often looked at stone walls and saw some that looked much better than others, and I could never figure out what the difference was until I began to train with professionals and discover what the key aspects were of a sound wall versus a wall that might not withstand the test of time, and basically form and function lead to something that is beautiful. Mm-hmm. And if you construct it properly, it not only looks right and will stand the test of time, but it
just gorgeous. They are gorgeous. Mm-hmm. We have some pictures. We're going to do a couple things. We're going to show the audience some examples of a couple stone walls that you've worked on.
Great.
And as they look at their monitors, their televisions, they're going to be able to see the stone wall structure itself. And some of them have grass growing on the top.
That's true.
And
Great.
Tell me a little bit about that concept of blending those two pieces of beautiful nature together.
That's a teacher once told me that the walls were the bones of a garden, that provided the structure for the organic plant material around them. And if you look at all the great gardens, they all seem to incorporate some form of stone with the plants and flowers. And the people I train with over in Europe, they use vertical coping, which is not very popular in this country. People seem to like flat tops, and I don't know if that's because they can sit on them or put plants on them.
Right.
But I discovered the Scottish tradition was to put sedums and grasses on top of the wall, and it just had a look to it that I thought was distinctive and added to a garden element that was kind of unique in this area. And I like the look of it, so I began to incorporate that in my walls.
I have seen many stone walls, and since I've met you, I've gotten a little bit more particular. And so I'm like looking at this going, oh, that's very nice, and seeing that folks have really taken the chance to build stone walls. And yet when I look at the work that you do, it actually is really a work of art. So that's what I would like just to share with the audience. And they can actually see examples of your stone walls going throughout Rochester now and the Monroe County area, as well as on your website. We will offer the website and his contact information toward the end of the show so that folks can get to see that.
Great.
Now, you're not only into stone walls, you are also into creating granite sinks from pieces of rock.
That's right. I like to use reclaimed stone. You can pull a piece of granite out of a farmer's field and turn it into something that is a very distinctive basin for your home or for the garden, something that adds an artistic element to a functional piece that is typically found around the home.
Can you take a moment and tell me how you learned to create these stone basins? Because I know you've gone and done some studying under some masters.
I did. I was, matter of fact, I was studying with the Queen's wall builder at a festival in Scotland, or in Canada rather, and I met a fellow who was stone carving there, and he agreed to train me since he didn't view me as a competitor since I was from the States.
Right.
And I went over and spent some time with him, and now I've become almost a business partner, collaborating with him on projects, and learned the ancient techniques of how to cut and carve and polish stone. And it's added a new dimension to my work that initially it was to keep me busy in the wintertime when I couldn't be out building stone walls, but I have a passion for that too, so I'm doing that in the summer as well.
And if our audience takes a moment, they can get a visual of what these bowls look like. They're just gorgeous. They're kitchen sinks, they're bathroom sinks, they're pieces of bird baths out into your gardens. They're just the fountains that you can create. It's almost endless, isn't it?
It is, and I like to mix the highly finished with the rough, uncut, natural beauty of the materials that I find to sort of meld both worlds together, and I find that creates a real striking piece that seems to strike a chord with people.
It is beautiful. A couple of things I really like about your work is that it is all natural. All natural. There is nothing synthetic. There is no mortar put in any of your creations of your walls. Everything is as it looks, which is pretty profound.
Right.
I think it would be neat for the audience to learn a little bit about you. Your history is that of an engineer.
That's right. I was a packaging engineer, and I spent 20 years designing packaging and selling packaging and developing packaging materials, and that's helped me lay a foundation because stone walls and carvings, although they're artistic structures, there is an engineering element that you need to have a proper base, and you need to design and construct with an engineering mentality to achieve an artistic finished product. You can't have one without the other. You can't have the beauty with only the engineering, and you can't have the engineering. If you skip the engineering part and just work on the arts and craft portion of it, you won't have something that would withstand the test of time.
Which helps me really appreciate the work that you do. One of the things I noticed is one of the walls I saw you building actually has a larger base, and then it went up. Can you tell me a little bit more about that design? I have some of your pictures here. This one.
Well, that's basically the basic concept for any stone wall. It has a larger base. There's what's called a batter. You never build a stone wall straight flush to the perpendicular. You always want to have it collapse inward on itself. And that's really the structural part of a properly built wall that you can see. The half of the mass of a stone wall is hidden within, and that's the part that most people overlook when they build a stone wall. They might simply dump in a bucket of pebbles to support the inside of the wall, but really what you're doing is you're creating the heart of the wall, and that's what those structural elements are called. They're called hearting, and you manufacture those on site, making shims and wedges that you carefully and deliberately place within the wall to support the wall and really knit it together. And you can think of it like a woven basket where the wall is knit together, and it will actually move and tighten up as freeze and thaw causes the ground to heave and move. The wall will implode inward on itself and become actually stronger.
Okay.
So that's the reason for a wider base and a narrower top.
And that's why you're an engineer and I'm doing consulting, coaching, and counseling, that's for
Possibly.
sure, because I wouldn't have known that. I would have done the very simple piece of just building a wall up. And there's many examples of that in our area, and in upper New York and in New York State, of those walls that don't have that hearting, as you call it, and you start to see them falling apart.
Right.
I do know that you do repair as well. You're willing to go through and help folks look at what may need repair, so that the walls that they may have started many years ago can still stay intact and be strengthened as well.
Right. I'm always happy to critique a wall, and there is an unfortunate perception I think in the Northeast that a dry laid stone wall do not last, and some of the builders just report that if the wall falls over in 5 years, that's just the way dry laid stone walls operate. But there's examples from ancient civilizations, the Mayans and the Greeks and the Chinese, that walls have lasted for thousands of years. And you can travel throughout the woods of western New York and find old farm walls that are still intact. So if they're properly constructed, you really don't need mortar to what I call glue a wall together. It's sort of counterintuitive to my philosophy to crush stones into dust and then add a chemical to create mortar and glue walls together, and they don't have the same aesthetic, pleasing beauty as a properly laid dry stone wall.
One of the neat things I've seen is that you actually can create curves in your stone walls. And what does it take to get that beautiful curving? I mean, that's pretty amazing.
That's a trade secret.
It's a trade secret, okay.
No, there's typically walls have been functional elements to hem in, keep the sheep in and designate boundaries, but now they're more artistic garden structures, and you can even go beyond a curved wall to incorporate elements like arches and artistic, any geometric 3D figure that you could imagine in your mind could pretty much be built from a dry laid stone structure. I
have seen some of the work of the structures of the arch work. That is amazing. And give me a little bit of history, because I know you have seen them and worked with folks who've created them and done some work of your own.
Right. There's not a lot of prominent dry laid structures in our area.
Right.
But you can build a bridge. You can build arches that you can walk through, and it's pretty much the crush of gravity and friction that hold those stones together. You build over a form,
Oh, okay.
remove the form, and the stones settle into a natural arch like they used in ancient times to build church cathedrals.
That's what really amazes me, is how they do that. But the church cathedrals typically use mortar. In your creating creations, and you and your contemporaries are also working together creating creations that don't have any of that classic chemical mortar.
That's right.
It's very fascinating.
That's the look that seems to resonate with people.
And it is beautiful. Other ideas and thoughts about what it was like to train and move from being an engineer, transition from that typical corporate engineer role into something that's very, very different, very unique. I'm guessing that there aren't large numbers of you throughout the U.S., especially at the mastering level that your folks are moving into. What was that like for you to start to tinker with this and it become a passion for you? Because it really did become your passion.
It felt very natural for me. I originally started this endeavor because I wanted to build a better wall on my own property, and I had an opportunity to take a workshop with the president of the Dry Stone Wall Association of Canada, John Shaw Remington, and I thought, boy, this is great. I can learn to build a wall correctly. And when I got together with him and realized that there were people like him that were doing it professionally throughout the world, it just that's what really led me to the desire to pursue this professionally. And I took more workshops through my connections that I made with John and some of the other wallers that I met at the workshops, and when people see you building a wall, they tend to initially think that you must be a prisoner on work release, and what did you do to have to do this type of work? But
Yeah.
it's really a labor of love.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot of hard work, physical labor,
Mm-hmm.
but the end product is just really makes you feel good about constructing something that you can leave behind and hopefully stands long after I'm gone.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So laying stone walls, making benches.
Benches.
This is endless. I've seen some of the bench work.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely amazing.
Right, they're not the kind of bench you would find at your local home center. They're much more distinctive, and you know, they just beckon you to come and sit on them. And there's just a feel about them when you touch the stone that just makes you feel like you're in touch with nature. And I like that aspect.
And it really has grown to be very therapeutic in a lot of ways. It's very, even though it's hard work, one of the things I've noticed as you've gone through, moving through this vocation, is the sense of peace that's coming about you that may not have been available when you were in a different world of work.
Right, I used to suffer from weekly migraines, and
Oh, did you
those
really?
are gone now. And I did have reservations when people would say to me, well, gosh, look at the size of you, and look at your age, you're going to work with these huge stones, what's the matter with you? But when you learn the proper techniques to move stone and to work with them in a healthy way without destroying your back, it's actually a healthful experience, and I'm hopeful that it'll lead to longer term health than a more sedentary lifestyle that I had before.
Very neat, very neat. Can you see yourself spending the next 20 years doing this?
Absolutely.
Isn't that neat? It's neat to see yourself going through that and creating the business that went along with it. I have had a chance to look at your website, and let's just take a moment so that the viewing audience can find out where to contact you. And the name of your company is?
Natural Stoneworks.
Natural Stoneworks, and the contact information is there. You are in the process of looking at buying some new property, and so by the time the show airs, you may have that property, so we'll have a new location, and that information will be on your website as soon as that is available.
Yes.
Phone numbers to reach you by, opportunities to look at your website, beautiful spaces. They'll also find on your website another piece. I know that you've done the stone walls, that you're also looking, and stone walls is one simple word because it's stone walls, benches, and anything else that they would like created. You've also been doing, creating the sinks and the basins for many places. And there's another little side piece that you've actually incorporated, which I think is a nice round off to your company at the moment. And that is you're doing
Engraving.
some engraving. Right. Tell us a little bit about the tools and techniques and the process to engraving, what you engrave, and how that happens.
Sure. I engrave all different types of stones, and everything from architectural pieces to garden stones to house numbers, distinctive business signs. And I got into that I started as a reseller with building walls and being involved with the stone community. There were folks that were asking me for engraved stones, and I had known a couple of fellows that would engrave stone, and they would engrave and I would facilitate the delivery. One of them decided to retire and move, and I had a chance to basically purchase his business and his equipment and his training and his knowledge, and he's still with me for the next year.
Wonderful.
To assist in the transition. Wonderful. And I'm learning that skill, and that too was sort of an innate skill that I took to like a fish into water. It really is a very minimal amount of training, and really the only training I'm getting is on the business administrative end of that business.
Wow, so that's really where you needed it, because the skill of engraving really came very natural and quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
So that's something that is keeping me busy, and I might have bitten off more than I can chew, but it's a good feeling to be busy with a lot of different aspects of stonework.
Mm-hmm.
It keeps the variety there, and I like that.
Mm-hmm. It'll give you some different interests in those kind of pieces. Who would you like to study with? Who's in your quiet passion? Who would you like to spend more time studying with, or go study with as you work in this field?
There's three people I'd like to study with. There's Norman Haddow,
Mm-hmm.
who I have studied with. He is the Queen's Waller
Yes.
in Scotland at Balmoral Castle. Dan Snow I've studied a bit with, who lives in Vermont, and he's probably the most prominent stone wall builder in the Northeast. And there is a local fellow, Chuck E. Blocker,
Yes, there is.
who is a wonderful stone waller, who I, like two ships passing in the night, I've missed opportunities with him, but I have an opportunity this summer to train with, and I'm going to take advantage of that and hopefully develop a stronger relationship with him, because I really admire his work.
Mm-hmm. So you've gone through many years of being an engineer, a lot of education, a lot of training. And one of the comments that I hear coming through our conversation today is you're training, learning, and learning,
Mm-hmm.
studying more and more.
That's
Very
true.
neat. Yes. What's it like for you to be doing at this point?
It feels great. I always like to learn, and from the folks I have trained with, Norman Haddow comes to mind. He's in his 70s, and he began stone walling under similar circumstances to me as a microbiologist with BP Chemical. He was downsized.
Mm-hmm.
He started walling, and he really encouraged me to throw caution to the wind a while back and start the business and train as I went, because he claims that he is still learning to this day, even as a master craftsman.
Mm-hmm.
And it really is a multifaceted field, and there's an awful lot to learn, and could probably never be learned in a lifetime, but
Mm-hmm.
that's one of the things that keeps it interesting for me.
Mm-hmm. It's almost a type of experience that my hope for you and for other of the master stone wallers, that we really give this art to the young people too.
Yes, that's
I think that's something that I would hate to see us lose this. It is, I mean, when I look at the pictures, when I look at the physical walls, it's just, it's simply beautiful. I mean, it is your tagline. It's simply beautiful. And the simplicity and yet the intricacy is just amazing. So I'm hoping that as our audience goes through, you know, the different roads they take and they happen to capture stone walls, that they really get an opportunity to see well-crafted stone walls. And even if they have one in their yard, they may be interested in learning how to reinforce that or something along that line, so it stays for a long, long time.
sure.
In
That's
such a throwaway society at times.
That's right. That's there seems to be a resurgence in dry laid stone walls
Mm-hmm.
throughout this country and probably throughout the world.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope it continues on, because you're right, there's not a lot of young people that get into that this field. It is relatively physically demanding, and it's not as I guess appealing as some of the information technologies that are out there, and more. This is a very ancient craft, and that to me is part of the appeal. That the tools we use many of them are the same that stone workers have used for thousands of years, and that just feels right to me.
What are the types of stones that are in your tool belt? The simple ancient tools, what would they look like if I was to...
Oh, they're very brutal-looking large chisels and big hammers,
Right.
and they're just what you would expect a stonemason to have. There's some modern tools, diamond blades with saws that speed the work up a bit, but there's the old standbys that have been used for thousands of years that have been improved upon a bit, but they're unique tools that aren't offered very widely, and you can't buy them at your local hardware store.
And is it almost like an artist with his or her favorite paintbrush, that you have certain tools that are just sweet?
It is. It's exactly like that. There's some tools that
It's a funny
never come out
relationship,
of the
isn't it?
toolbox. Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's a really kind of a funny relationship.
Right.
Yeah. It's quite a neat process.
Mm-hmm.
If you were to have a young person, or even a person who's going, a little bit older, kind of like our age, and they were looking at taking a risk to do something that was very different, what would your word of wisdom be to them?
I would say throw caution to the wind and jump right into it if you have a passion for it, because in the end you'll be a lot happier.
How scary was it to throw caution to the wind?
at times it was scary. There was the lure of going back to a more stable job several times, but
Right.
in the end, I'm glad I stuck with my gut feeling, and it seems to be working out so far.
So even though there were times it was just like, what am I doing? What am I thinking? Can I really do this? That doubt and fear. What helped you stay focused and take the risk anyway?
The support of my wife, for one thing, the support of the people that I trained with, and periodic meetings with you to keep me focused and on task, and that kept my morale up and my drive to do what I loved rather than to go back and do what was easy that I had always done.
Well, I will say that it's really lovely to watch you grow into this and to grow this business. I'm looking forward to people meeting you, to people becoming more aware of stone walls and beautiful, natural, all natural, nothing chemical, induced experiences that they can put in their homes and in their gardens. We are moving more towards a sustainable culture, a more green culture, and all that word gets thrown around a lot. This really is truly beautifully green. So what I'd like to do is I would like folks to once again check out your website, give you a call, have a great conversation. If folks have additional ideas for the show that you would like to see, please feel free to contact me at the contact information that you see below as well. And on that note, I'd like to thank you, Dan, for coming and being with me, and just to thank you for allowing me to be part of your experience and journey as well.
You're welcome. I was glad to be here. Thanks.
Thanks.
This program was produced through Penfield Community Television in Penfield, New York.